Season's greetings, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday service before Christmas at First Jefferson Unitarian Universalist Church in Fort Worth, Texas. My name is Annie Foerster, and I'm minister to this congregation. We're celebrating the Christmas holidays today with a look at how the rest of the world celebrates. Each family has its own traditions, but so does each nation. If you thought flying reindeer were unusual for Santa's transportation, wait until you hear about the Christmas goat. But let's start the service with some seasonal music from our fine pianist, Misha Beresnev. We have come here seeking Christmas, searching outside ourselves for what can be found only within. Christmas is a season of the Spirit, a habit of the heart, not reserved for designated days in December, but available all days, all year, lighting our way through the darkness and the dullness of the winters of our souls to the Bethlehem that dwells within each of us. We need to be reminded now and then of that star's abiding presence and persistence in each one of us. Here we pause, if only for a moment in the midst of holiday madness, to listen for the angel voices that sound softly inside each of us, proclaiming the truth of Christmas that lies beneath all the tinsel and glitter of getting and spending, the ho-ho-hos that quickly become bah humbugs of the gifts of Christmas that cannot be got or bought or sold, but can only be freely received and gladly given, shared with ourselves and others. Please join us in our opening hymn on this day everywhere. It's number 249 in your hymn book, but the words will be on your screen, and our song leader this morning is Brian Skinner.
On this day everywhere, children's songs fill the air. Greet the child new and fair, Christmas gifts so holy, born in stable lowly. Ideo, 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 Gloria, in excelsis Deo. Sweet the babe, strange his bed, manger hay round his head, cattle there in the shed, Mary, Joseph by him, shepherds drawing nigh him. Ideo, by three find their way by a star's shining ray to the child in the hay. Give their wondrous presents, gold and myrrh and incense. Ideo, Ideo, Gloria, in excelsis Deo.
Please join me in lighting our chalice this morning. Oh, I just put the helper candle out. Let's see what we can do here. We light our chalice this morning for the gifts of Christmas, not the ones bought and wrapped, but the ones given by this holiday itself. Now, if you think you know what these gifts are, stay with us and see if our understandings are the same. And if you think that Christmas is more problem than pleasure, well, then stay indeed to see what gifts might unfold for you. But for now, join me in saying our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Both the spiritual side of Christmas, the Christmas story, the winter solstice, and the secular side are about gifts, giving gifts, getting gifts, discovering the magic that is the gift of Christmas. At least that's what we are told. In the modern stories about Christmas, there's often a bit of skepticism, but the gifts always win out in the end. So my questions for today are these. What's all the fuss about? What gifts are brought to you inherent in the season? And must you return them? Not give them back, but give a gift of your own in return. Before I get into my response, I want to do a story for all ages. And one of the stuffies has stayed this week with me. This is Bunky. And he's going to listen to the story about the foolish fir tree written by Henry Van Dyke. A little fir tree grew in the midst of the wood, contented and happy, as young trees should. His body was straight and his boughs were clean, and summer and winter the bountiful sheen of his needles bedecked him from top to root in a beautiful, all-the-year, evergreen suit. But a trouble came into his heart one day when he saw that the other trees were gay in the wonderful raiment that summer weaves of manifold shapes and kinds of leaves. He looked at his needles so stiff and so small, and he thought that his dress was the poorest of all. Then jealousy clouded the little tree's mind, and he said to himself, "It's not very kind to give such an ugly old dress to a tree. If the fays of the forest would only ask me, I'd tell them I should like to be dressed in a garment of gold to bedazzle the rest." So he fell asleep, but his dreams were bad. When he woke in the morning, his heart was glad, for every leaf that his boughs could hold was made of the brightest beaten gold. I tell you, children, the tree was proud. He was something above the common crowd, and he tinkled his leaves as he would say to a peddler who happened to pass that way, "Just look at me, don't you think I am fine? And wouldn't you like such a dress as mine?" "Oh, yes," said the man, "and I really guess I must fill my pack with your beautiful dress." So he picked the golden leaves with care and left the little tree shivering there. "Oh, why did I wish for golden leaves?" the fir tree said. "I forgot that thieves would be sure to rob me in passing by. If the fairies would give me another try, I'd wish for something that cost much less and be satisfied with glass for my dress." Then he fell asleep, and just as before, the fairies granted his wish once more. And when the night was gone and the sun rose clear, the tree was a crystal chandelier. And it seemed as he stood in the morning light that his branches were covered with jewels bright. "Aha," said the tree, "this is something great." And he held himself up very proud and straight. But a rude ground wind through the forest dashed in a reckless temper and quickly smashed the delicate leaves. With a clashing sound, they broke into pieces and fell on the ground like a silvery, shimmery shower of hail, and the tree stood naked and bare to the gale. And then he sighed and groaned, but his voice was weak. He was so ashamed that he could not speak. He knew at least he had been a fool to think of breaking the forest rule and choosing a dress himself to please because he envied the other trees. But it couldn't be helped. It was now too late. He must make up his mind to a leafless fate. So he let himself sink in a slumber deep. But he moaned and he tossed in his troubled sleep till the morning touched him with a joyful beam and woke to find it was all a dream. For there in his evergreen dress he stood, a pointed fir in the midst of the wood. His branches were sweet with a balsam smell. His needles were green when the white snow fell. And always contented and happy was he, the very best kind of Christmas tree. Happy and contented. I like that, don't you, Bunky? Happily ever after sounds so, well, impossible for one thing, but contentment, if you find it, supports the soul through tragedy, anger, misunderstanding, and fear. I wish for all of you a contented life with frequent happiness and occasional joy, a life like a cookie with both fruit and nuts in it. Okay, I'm about to give you my first response to this thing about Christmas. You see, only about 30% of the world's population claims itself to be Christian, and about 25% to be Islamic, 15% are either atheist or agnostic, and another 15% claim to be Hindu. There are other smaller religious groups that make up the rest. In this country alone, 70% of the population identify as Christian, some practicing, some lapsed. Yet more than 90% of that same population celebrates Christmas. What is it about Christmas that appeals to so many people? It isn't just the sacred stories of the season. When we look closer, we can't even be sure what it means to believers, because Christmas traditions across the country and all over the world, for that matter, are so different. One might almost think they are separate holidays. I'm assuming if you're listening to me that your traditions include a Christmas tree, lights inside or outside the house, a family dinner perhaps, and an exchange of gifts either on Christmas Eve or Christmas morning. But let me give you just a few of the many examples of variety to these common traditions. In the Philippines, for instance, people look forward to the giant lantern festival each year on the Sunday before Christmas. There is a competition for creating these lanterns among the villages near San Fernando, the Christmas capital of the Philippines. What started as paper lanterns, about 18 to 20 inches across, lit by candles, are now giant lanterns, 18 to 20 feet across, and lit by electric bulbs that are strung in a kaleidoscope of patterns. Maweng Pasko. That's how they say Merry Christmas in the islands. I'm not sure my accent's correct, though. In Norway, never mind the lanterns, pay attention to the goat. Yes, a Yule goat, built in the center of town and standing nearly 43 feet tall. Well, don't ask me why. Traditions are not always logical. This has been a Christmas tradition in Norway since 1966, but it has unwittingly created another tradition which is trying to burn the goat down. It's happened 29 times in the past 54 years. And while you're out watching the goat, don't forget to hide your brooms. Witches and evil spirits come out on Christmas Eve in Norway looking for brooms to ride on. Gott Jul, as they say in Norway. Oh, but in Austria, you would not want to be a naughty child. Not only would Santa put you on the naughty list and leave coal in your stocking, but Krampus would come to steal you away. Krampus is St. Nick's evil partner, roaming the streets to punish those who have not minded their parents. His head, bald and completely white, has 2 large ram's horns attached, and his teeth are red and crusted like, ooh, I don't even want to think about it. Not only is the story part of the Christmas tradition, but young men don Krampus costumes carrying chains and bells early in the month of December, roaming the streets and scaring young children into behaving in time for Christmas. Frohe Weihnachten. In Venezuela, people travel to church on roller skates on Christmas Eve before returning home to a dinner of tamales. There's no explanation I could find. Feliz Navidad. In Japan, where Christmas isn't really such a big deal, there being a minimum of Christians creating traditions there, a recent tradition is to have a Christmas Day feast from, wait for it, Kentucky Fried Chicken. There is no Japanese phrase for Merry Christmas, just the English words said with a Japanese accent. I was sorry not to be able to find an unusual celebration tradition in France or Hawaii, since I already knew how to say Merry Christmas in those languages. But you can't have too many holiday greetings, can you? So, Joyeux Noël and Mele Kalikimaka. More later on my questions, but for now a generosity report. Throughout the years, ministers at First Jefferson Unitarian Universalist Church have relied on the generosity of parishioners at Christmas time to add to the minister's discretionary fund. This is money the minister is charged with distributing when members and friends of the congregation have financial emergencies. On a good year, there are usually funds left over by the end of the year, but this year has been pretty hard on everybody, and the fund is dangerously low. I appeal to your Christmas spirit, if you can manage it, to send a donation to the church office. Mark your envelopes and/or checks MDF, or simply Christmas Fund if you forget the name. And I thank you in advance for your generosity. You are angels in disguise. Which brings us to our next hymn, this one led by Della Purdon, Angels We Have Heard on High.
Angels we have heard on high, sweetly singing o'er the plain.
Each Sunday, I present a communion of names and milestones that shares the stories that live in this community, the stories of joy and the stories of concern. This morning, I want to start with Joy Fletcher's family, her daughter Brittany Garcia and Brittany's husband Carlos. They've all tested positive for the coronavirus, and they are quarantined at home, and the children have exhibited symptoms of the disease, but the last I heard, all are well. We will keep them in our thoughts until they can tell us that they are better. But on a lighter front, within this same household, yesterday was Joy's birthday, and she announced that her older daughter is expecting another child next spring. Happy news. Hang in there, guys, and keep us posted. Dan Levine, one of our hymn leaders, but not this morning, announced that his new book, Healing the Reason Emotion Split, Scarecrows, Tin Woodman, and the Wizard, will be out next month from Routledge Publishing. It's available for pre-ordering on Amazon. The title alone is enough to make you want to read it, isn't it? Congratulations, Dan. And you know, every time at this year I would introduce this year's board to you and thank them for their service. Today will be their last meeting of 2020, and since we do not meet in person but on Zoom, I cannot share that happiness with them, but I do want to thank them for their service and the hard work they did in this difficult year. And I want to especially thank the members who are leaving the board this year. They're David Winkowski, who served as president, Dan Sexton, who served as treasurer, and Joe Burnham, who was a member at large. The other members that we're thanking but will return next year are Vice President Paul Shatman, Secretary Marianne Clark, and at-large members Guy Thornton and Brian Skinner. Thank you, 2020 board. Because our music was all pre-recorded this morning, there will not be a musical interlude after our moment of guided meditation, this one written by Rebecca Parker, former president of Star King School for the Ministry. So I invite you to get comfortable, close your eyes if you wish, and think about those you care for but can't reach during this closed down, shut-in Christmas holiday. Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or curse the world. The mind's power, the strength of the lungs, the reaches of the heart, the gift of speaking, listening, imagining, seeing, writing, any of these can serve to feed the hungry, to bind up wounds, welcome the stranger, praise what is sacred, do the work of justice, or offer love. Any of these can draw down the prison door, hoard bread, abandon the poor, obscure what is holy, comply with injustice, or withhold love. You must answer this question: what will you do with your gifts? Choose to bless the world. Amen. My reading this morning is by Robert Fulghum. Before he became famous, the Reverend Robert Fulghum self-published a book of Christmas stories and gave them to colleagues who served nearby. I was one of those lucky colleagues, and this is one of those stories. I usually draw up a heavy-duty things-to-do list about this time of year, he wrote, but this year I started from somewhere else in my mind. A new list, one page. A things to be list. I concentrated on the feelings I wanted to have, the condition of mind and spirit I yearned for, the quality of life I wanted to manifest, the vibrations I wanted to give off to other people. A things to be list for Christmas. And then I boiled the list down into one line. And then I summarized that line into one word. And then I wrote that word on a tiny piece of paper. And then I wrapped that tiny piece of paper around a small candy cane, and I ate it, list and all. Shazam! It came upon a midnight clear. I suppose you want to know what the one word was. No, you've got to work it out for yourself, like Christmas. Because if it ain't inside you somewhere, all the lists in the world won't make it happen. Well, you go look for paper and pencil to make your list. Let's listen to Andy Pierce sing about that midnight long ago.
It came upon the midnight clear, that glorious song of old, from angels bending near the earth to touch their harps of gold. Peace on the earth to all goodwill, from heaven news we bring. The world in solemn stillness lay to hear the angels sing. Still through the cloven skies they come, with peaceful wings unfurled, and still their heavenly music floats o'er all the weary world. Above its sad and lowly plains they bend on hovering wing, and ever o'er its babel sounds the blessed angels sing. But with the woes of war and strife the world has suffered long. Beneath the angel strain have rolled 2,000 years of wrong. And we who fight the wars hear not the love song which they bring. Oh, hush the noise of battle strife, and hear the angels sing. For lo, the days are hastening on, by prophet buds foretold, when with the ever-circling years comes round the age of gold, when peace shall over all the earth its ancient splendors fling, and the whole world give back the song which now the angels sing.
Well, here's my second response to the questions I asked you to consider. Here we are, once again, just days before Christmas, wondering why and how Unitarian Universalists celebrate Christmas. But wondering aside, celebrate we do, from giant trees to lusty song, from last-minute shopping to this annual worship service. With poetry and melody, we celebrate. Each year since I became a minister, I take on another piece of it. Each year I try to understand a little better what it's all about. It isn't just one thing I've discovered. You understand that, don't you? It's about many things, about being human. Even if Christmas hadn't been created over the centuries from an assembly of traditions, from an anthology of stories, from an assortment of ethnicities, this season, this accumulation of feelings, of hopes, of expectations would still have to be celebrated And we would have had to invent other traditions and other stories and other celebrations. This season, this lead up to Christmas, that holy day itself, is the funnel of our year's living. Living well, living badly, trying harder, understanding the glimmers of truths, finding love, misplacing it, all the human things we do unceasingly, unthinkingly, unintentionally, and intentionally all year long, is being squeezed of its essence, celebrated and tucked away with smiles and dreams for another year. And next year we will ask again, why am I doing this? And then we will do it. We will celebrate whatever we choose to call it: solstice, Kwanzaa, Christmas, Hanukkah, Festivus, Yule Goat. And we will be glad we did. We will understand holiness just a bit better than we did before. And hearing the old familiar stories, we will see their wisdom just a little more clearly. We will write our things to be list. We will choose to bless the world. I mean, take the story of the child. Take whatever version you are comfortable with. Each night a child is born is a holy night. Why, that would be every night of the year and every day if we but believed it. And sometimes when we remember, we act as if we do, and we are blessed. E.C. Barnwell wrote a song that goes, "For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are." Boy, that would make for a very crowded sky if we but believed it. And it is crowded, that is, if we know how to look, crowded and ablaze with the songs of the universe, with the life of the universe, of which we are a part. And here is a sign for you. You will find a baby wrapped in swaddling clothes. That's Luke 2. That would give us an enormous number of signs, wouldn't it, if we but believed it? And enormous numbers is what we need in order to maintain our faith in this puzzling, troubling, amazing world. So is that what it's all about babies? Babies as signs, babies as portent, babies as credentials? Is it that easy? We're born, life is sacred, we are holy. Well, almost, but not quite. That alone would not be worth the celebrations. Is it that we must learn to be childlike, learn to find Christmas everywhere, in the sparkle of colored lights, in the Yule goat, in the giant lanterns, in hidden brooms and dinners of tamales and fried chicken, in Santa Claus and Krampus? No, innocence alone isn't enough either. Why babies? Why children? What do they really represent? I'll tell you what I think. They represent beginnings, for starters. Innocence? Yes. Helplessness? Oh my, yes. I think that's closer. The very helplessness of babies to care for themselves means that for them to survive, there must be a relationship, preferably a relationship that includes love. This, I think, is the essence of the season, this funneling of long nights and short days, of all the years accumulated living, of the questions unanswered and the dreams unspoken or unrealized, that Christmas and life can't be a celebration except in relationship. Think about it. We don't celebrate alone. Oh, we could toss a handful of confetti up in the air and down a toast of champagne in self-congratulation, but it isn't really a celebration until you run out and tell someone, "Shazam, I figured it out." Or if you sing, "I am the breath of my ancestors. We are one." That's the way Barnwell's song ends. We could discuss theology here. We could speak of virgin births, but come on. At one time, every birth was a virgin birth, a magical mystery until men figured out what women probably knew before them, how life is created. The story says that Mary wasn't in relationship with Joseph, but with the Spirit of the universe. This is a bigger argument to me, the connecting to something larger than yourself, for relationships that span more than a couple or a family a tribe, or a nation. Larger, like a miraculous conception, not a literal one. We could speak of immanent godhood, the sacred spark within each one of us, but without interrelatedness, without interaction, the spark is merely existence. It isn't life. It isn't the spirit of the holy until we give to one another the acknowledgement that you too are sacred. Each of us is sacred in relationship to the whole. This is where the stories of gifts come in, I think. Acknowledgement of another's holiness is the greatest gift we can give one another. The ones wrapped in paper are merely symbolic, celebratory reminders of that other, greater gift. This is what we have to learn over and over and over. This is why this holy season comes every year, so that we can renew the lessons, so that we can celebrate it, so we can keep on going, even when we forget, until we see the magic once again, in a candle's flame, in a child's face, in a song's sweetness, in a caress, in a gift, in a dark room, lit only by candlelight and love. Each night a child is born is a holy night. For each child that's born, a morning star does rise and sing to the universe. We are those children, and sometimes we forget that, but not in this season. There are too many reminders, too many lights, too many songs, too much celebration, too many questions, and sooner or later, we have to remember who we are, who we want to be, and why we celebrate together in relationship and love. Gott Jul, Frohe Weihnachten, Feliz Navidad, Joyeux Noel, Mele Kalikimaka, Merry Christmas, and Happy Holidays. We lit our chalice this morning. Another symbol of love and relationship. Let us be gifts to one another. Let us give love to ourselves and then breathe out into the world as we celebrate this closing year. Let us take the meaning of our flame into the hearts and expel it through our blessings to one another. We will not have a Christmas Eve service this year, so on Thursday, let us imagine that we are together, that each of us holds a lit candle and someone is turning down the lights. Let us imagine how sweet it will be when it happens next year as we listen to our closing hymn sung by Reneel Baker. Blessed celebrations, so may they occur in all of our lives.
Silent night, holy night, all at the sight. Glory stream from heaven afar. Heavenly hosts sing hallelujah. Sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, child of God, love's pure light, radiant beam from thy holy face. With the dawn of redeeming grace, sleep in heaven.